Another day, another story. When British General Lord Charles Cornwallis and his army surrendered to General George Washington's American force and its French allies at the Battle of Yorktown on October 19, 1781, it was more than just a military win. The outcome in Yorktown, Virginia marked the conclusion of the last major battle of the American Revolution and the start of a new nation's independence. It also cemented Washington's reputation as a great leader and eventual election as first President of the United States. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. Washington's fame grew to international proportions, having wrested such an impossible victory, according to the Washington Library, interrupting his much-desired Mount Vernon retirement with greater calls to public service. Timeline leading up to the battle. In the summer of 1780, 5,500 French troops, with Comte de Rochambeau at the helm, landed in Newport, Rhode Island to aid the Americans. At the time, British forces were fighting on two fronts, with General Henry Clinton occupying New York City, and Cornwallis, who had already captured Charleston and Savannah, in South Carolina. It was obvious that the Americans needed a big victory if they were to convince the peace conference in Europe that they had a right to demand independence for all 13 colonies, writes Thomas Fleming in his book, Yorktown. With the Continental Army positioned in New York, Washington and Rochambeau teamed to plan a timed attack on Clinton with the arrival of more French forces. When they found the French fleet was instead sailing to the Chesapeake Bay, Washington concocted a new plan. He would fool Clinton into thinking the Continentals were planning to attack New York while instead sneaking away to the south to attack Cornwallis, according to the Army Heritage Center Foundation. Washington ordered the construction of large camps with huge brick-bread ovens where Clinton could see them to create the illusion that the Continental Army was preparing for a long stay. Washington also prepared false papers discussing attack plans on Clinton, and let these papers fall into British hands. Washington arrives in Yorktown. By mid-September 1781, Washington and Rochambeau arrived in Williamsburg, Virginia, 13 miles from the tobacco port of Yorktown, where Cornwallis's men had built a defense of 10 small forts, aka redoubts, with artillery batteries and connecting trenches. In response, Cornwallis asked Clinton for aid, and the general promised him a fleet of 5,000 British soldiers would set sail from New York to Yorktown. With a small force left in New York, about 2,500 Americans and 4,000 French soldiers, facing some 8,000 British troops, began digging their own trenches 800 yards from the Brits and started a nearly week-long artillery assault on the enemy on October 9. The heavy cannons pounded the British mercilessly, and by October 11 had knocked out most of the British guns, the Army Heritage Center Foundation states. Cornwallis received the unfortunate for him news that Clinton's departure from New York had been delayed. A new parallel trench, 400 yards closer to the British lines, was ordered by Washington on October 11, but completing it would entail taking out the British redoubt's number. The role of Alexander Hamilton. The attack on Redoubt would be undertaken by French troops, while the siege would be led by Colonel Alexander Hamilton. The founding father wasn't the top pick of Major General Marquis de Lafayette for the job, but Hamilton, who wanted to improve his reputation by proving himself on the battlefield, talked Washington into it. To speed up the siege of the two redoubts, French troops were to take Redoubt number, while Hamilton's men were assigned number. Washington ordered the use of bayonets, rather than pounding them slowly into submission with cannon, writes Ron Chernow in Alexander Hamilton. After nightfall on October 14, the Allies fired several consecutive shells in the air that brilliantly illuminated the sky, Chernow writes. At that point, Hamilton and his men rallied from their trenches and sprinted across a quarter-mile of field with fixed bayonets. For the sake of silence, surprise, and soldierly pride, they had unloaded their guns to take the position with bayonets alone. Dodging heavy fire, they let out war whoops that startled their enemies. The whole operation had consumed fewer than 10 minutes. General Cornwallis surrenders. Of his 400 infantrymen, Hamilton lost just 9 in the attack, with some 30 wounded, while the 400 French-led troops lost 27 men, with 109 wounded, according to Fleming. Surrounded by enemy fire, and blocked from receiving aid by the French fleet that had arrived in Chesapeake Bay, Cornwallis was trapped. The successful siege allowed the Allies to complete the second parallel trench and snuffed out the last remains of resistance among the British. In a final effort on October 16, Cornwallis attempted a nighttime sea evacuation, but he was stopped by a storm. On the morning of October 19, the British sent forward a red-coated drummer boy, followed by an officer waving a white handkerchief to the parapet. All guns fell silent. Cornwallis had surrendered. The end of the Revolutionary War. Following the battle at Yorktown and Cornwallis's surrender, and the British down one-third of its force, the British Parliament, in March 1782, passed a resolution calling for the nation to end the war. "Oh God, it is all over!" Prime Minister Frederick North exclaimed upon hearing of the Yorktown surrender, writes Alan Taylor in American Revolutions, A Continental History, 1750–1804. The British still had 30,000 men in North America, occupying the seaports of New York, Charlestown and Savannah, according to Taylor. But the demoralizing loss at Yorktown diminished the British will to continue to fight the rebels. On September 3, 1783, the Revolutionary War came to an official end with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. Echoes of freedom. In the crisp autumn air of 1781, amidst the smoke and thunder of cannons, young Sarah, a brave patriot's daughter, found herself at the heart of the Battle of Yorktown. Living on a farm just outside the besieged town, she witnessed the ebb and flow of the conflict daily. Sarah's days were spent tending to wounded soldiers from both sides, her heart heavy with the burden of their suffering. Among the injured, she met Daniel, a British soldier who, despite being her enemy, shared her longing for peace. As the siege tightened, their secret meetings under the cover of night turned into conversations about dreams beyond the battlefield, dreams of a world where differences didn't lead to war. Amidst the chaos, Sarah discovered a coded message in her father's belongings. It revealed a plot within the British ranks to sabotage their own defences, prolonging the conflict. Risking her life, she and Daniel joined forces to expose the conspiracy, bridging the gap between the warring sides. As they raced against time, their courage inspired others. A group of unlikely allies emerged, American and French soldiers, local farmers, and even some sympathetic British troops, all united by a common cause, freedom. In the heart of Yorktown, as the decisive moment approached, this diverse group worked together, dismantling the traps set by their own comrades. The night before the final assault, they shared stories of home, breaking bread together in an impromptu show of unity. When the sun rose on that fateful day, the combined forces launched a surprise attack, catching the British off guard. The plan worked, and the conspirators were apprehended, their scheme thwarted. The Battle of Yorktown raged, but amidst the chaos, a new understanding had emerged, an understanding that people, despite their differences, could find common ground in the pursuit of a shared humanity. In the aftermath of victory, as the smoke cleared and the wounded were tended to, Sarah and Daniel stood side by side. They had played their part in history, proving that even in the darkest times, bonds of friendship and understanding could blossom, sowing the seeds for a more peaceful future. Harmony amidst the guns. In the autumn of 1781, amidst the clash of muskets and the roar of cannons at the Battle of Yorktown, an extraordinary tale of camaraderie unfolded. At the heart of the conflict was a young musician named Emily, whose violin echoed through the war-torn fields. Emily, an American patriot, had a remarkable gift for music. Her melodies possessed a unique power to calm the storm within the hearts of soldiers on both sides. Captivated by her music, a British officer named Captain James Morrison approached her one evening, setting aside the enmity of war to appreciate the art that transcended their differences. In the quiet moments between battles, Emily and Captain Morrison found solace in their shared love for music. Their impromptu duets, he on a captured French flute and she on her violin, became a symbol of unity amidst the chaos of war. Their music inspired conversations about peace and understanding, sparking a quiet revolution of thought among the soldiers. Threads of destiny. In the twilight of the Revolutionary War, as the Battle of Yorktown raged, there existed an unlikely friendship between two individuals on opposite sides of the conflict. Elizabeth, a spirited young woman from a colonial family, found herself in the heart of the siege, serving as a nurse in the makeshift hospitals, tending to both American and French soldiers. Amidst the chaos, she encountered William, a British officer with a conscience burdened by the brutality of war. Captivated by Elizabeth's compassion, William questioned the purpose of their fight. Their clandestine meetings beneath the shadow of Yorktown's ancient oaks were filled with discussions about freedom, duty, and the cost of independence. One day, while exploring the ruins of a battle-scarred plantation, Elizabeth and William stumbled upon an elderly woman named Abigail, a former slave who had quietly aided the Patriot cause. Abigail, with her deep wisdom and unshakable faith, became a guiding light for the young pair, reminding them that the struggle for freedom extended beyond nations and armies. As the siege tightened, Elizabeth, William, and Abigail forged an alliance, weaving a plan to save innocent lives trapped within the besieged town. Risking everything, they devised a daring escape route for families, British sympathizers, and slaves seeking freedom, threading their way through the lines of battle and past sentinels. Their clandestine efforts were not without challenges. They faced betrayal, danger, and the harsh realities of war. Yet their shared belief in a better world fueled their determination. With each life they saved, they wove another thread into the tapestry of a future where understanding and empathy triumphed over conflict. When Yorktown fell, and the echoes of musket fire faded into history, Elizabeth, William, and Abigail stood together, proof that amidst the brutality of war, the human spirit could endure. Their story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the direst circumstances, compassion and unity could prevail, leaving a legacy for generations to come. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.